Good start. Yeah.
Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, and welcome to Blurring the Lines podcast, episode number 114. I am your host, Adam Bell, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Peter Nikolaidis. How you doing, Peter?
All things considered, doing pretty well, Adam. Thank you for asking.
Good. And then joining us today, we've got Bill Wright. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing very good. Thank you much, Adam.
He hails from Columbus.
Yeah, from Pickerington, Ohio. The city name that nobody can spell until they see it spelled and they're like, oh, just like it sounds.
Like it sounds. Well, awesome.
So we know Bill from our marketing group days back when Peter was still in the group, and Bill and I are still in the group, but not in a group together. I'm actually not I'm still in the marketing group. I'm just not in an accountability group in the marketing group anymore. But Bill is.
So you market, but you're not accountable.
Well, no, I've got a marketing department now with and they're accountable.
and I can't believe that the words came out of your mouth that Adam's not accountable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just wondering, like I was expecting him at any point to say, I take no responsibility, to just follow things up, but
Yeah, Adam's one of the most accountable people I know, I think. So it's kind of annoying at times.
Guilt and shame, I try to not hold on to it.
Or accountability, right? Let it go. Just let it all go.
So, well, cool. Well, all right, Bill. So then, you're joining us here. We're all over the country. So Peter got me to play a game last week of Munchkin. Have you ever heard of Munchkin?
No.
You've heard of Dungeons and Dragons.
I've heard of that, yes.
This is kind of like a card game of that. It's a lot, well, I wouldn't say it was it could be time consuming like Dungeons and Dragons and with who you're playing with, but it was a lot of fun. So.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's way simpler. Way simpler than D&D.
Yeah, simpler as yeah. So you don't have to roll your characters and all this stuff. I mean, you do build your character as part of the game, but it's fun. I think the first game we played took us 2 hours.
I think so.
Second one took us less than an hour and a half, and that was social. Yep. But I mean, the second game was really quick, actually. But yeah, it's fun. It's
Munchkin. Yeah.
We found a way to make it work over Zoom or video conferencing or whatever, and there are some disadvantages of things here and there, like trying to give Peter a card. He has to write it down.
Yeah. But it works out well. I mean, the thing is, like, it's a card game, so you have decks of cards, but it's not like poker where if you have two aces of spades, someone's getting shot.
Yeah.
It's okay to have duplicates of the cards. So, we either just make a note saying, okay, Peter's got this card here, or if I happen to have it handy in my discard pile, I'm like, okay, I've got that card. Mm-hmm. So it's not designed to be played online, but it translates really well.
Yes, it can happen.
Yeah, it's a fun little game. It's fun for the whole family. The trick is you really need at least 3 people to play. Mm-hmm. So when we played, it was either me and my girlfriend and Adam, or Adam's daughter, and so we tried to get at least 3 folks in, and you have to have a copy of the deck. So the game. So it costs like $20. We got ours on Amazon, and it was like next day delivery for Adam, and it took me 2 days to get it up here. So highly recommended, though.
It is one of those games, though, that you wouldn't want to play with a jerk, like a friend jerk. It's fun. See, Peter plays ornery, but he's not a jerk. But he's like, what would happen if I did this?
Oh, no, it's not if I did this. It's what would happen if there was a wandering monster who just wandered by. I mean,
Yeah. So he's not a jerk about it. He's having fun, but you could really, like, if you wanted to pick on somebody, that would be a game that if you wouldn't want to play with your nemesis. They would.
But even if
So Robin
do,
and I would not want to play this game because she likes to annihilate me in games. So.
But here's the thing, though. Even if you are playing with your nemesis, there's stuff that's built in to compensate for that. Because, like, one of the things is at the end of your turn, you have to have only 5 cards in your hand, unless you have a card that modifies that. So if you've got like 8 cards and you're at the top, you either have to play those cards, and if you can't legally play them, you have to make a charity donation. You have to give them to the lowest player. So all of a sudden you're like, well, you're in last place, so here, have some cards. And those can really make a difference. Like, I was like, the idea is to get from level 1 to level 10, as you advance through the dungeon. And I don't think maybe it was the last time we played, I forget, but I was like level 1, and then 2 turns later, I was level 8.
Yeah.
So, it can turn around really quickly, and you can descend just as fast.
Yeah.
Okay. It sounds a little bit like Disney's new Villains game, and I've played it once with Robin and Zoe, and it took like 2 hours to figure out the rules of this game. It's not bad once you figure out all the rules and stuff, but it's kind of similar like that. You just never know what's going to happen, and when you think you're ahead, all of a sudden somebody's like taking you out. So
keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they like to play that game. They won't play Clue with me because I always win. So. But
now, do you play old classic Clue, or do you play the new one with superpowers, or what?
We pretty much the old classic Clue game.
Okay.
I think there's a Disney version of it that those type, but they're all based off of the old.
I played Clue, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years ago, and it was all like, once per turn, this person can, teleport or whatnot. I was like, what the heck is this?
I've not played that one yet. So
yeah, like they all of the characters have new, and they're all like young and hip looking now.
Oh,
so,
okay.
I was like, okay, sure, whatever.
I think there's even a Harry Potter version of it or something.
There is.
Like that. Yeah.
There is a Harry Potter version.
We play the classic. I mean, ours it's a new one, but it is a classic remake,
Right.
So
yeah.
Classic characters and, all of the same stuff. So I like it. I like
I love to play Clue, but yeah, others don't like to play with me. They tell me I'm the nosiest, most observant person they know.
Isn't that the idea of playing the game, though? I mean,
So Bill's really an old grandma.
I've been called that. Yeah. Major excitement.
Cool. So,
all right. So Peter, you had a number of things that we can chat about. Why is Windows 7 in there again?
Still. Well, I wanted to get your opinion on this, and I think I know Adam, but since we've got Bill here, and again, Bill, we didn't get. You've never been on the show before, so like 20 words or less. What is your occupation, and what do you guys do, and who do you do it to? I mean, for?
Well, the company name is WCI Technology Solutions. We are an MSP in the Columbus metro area. Our focus really is with family-owned businesses. We've actually just kind of figured that out after going through some marketing, that is the target that we do very well in and have a lot of expertise with. So if you're a family-owned business in the Columbus metro or Ohio market, we're the MSP to talk to.
Excellent. All right. And MSP, most of our listeners probably know because Adam and I talk about it regularly, but managed services provider, IT services.
Yes.
Computer related stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
All of that.
And
excellent. More.
And more. Okay. So do you have any clients who are still running Windows XP?
No.
Do you still have any clients who are running Windows 7?
There is one.
I have one on XP.
We have
I have.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
we found two. I mean,
Yep.
two XPs in the same client office.
I've got a 7.
Yep. We've got XP embedded definitely in some of the hospitals for sure, but not widely deployed. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And we sent out notices last year to all of our clients who still had Windows 7 saying, yo, you got a choice. You can either pay for extended support or upgrade these systems or replace them, right? So one of my larger clients, it was pretty quick turnaround. All of a sudden one day said, can we do remote access? We talked about this last week, Adam, you and I did. And very quickly we were able to spin up, VPNs for everybody and deploy them. And while I was doing that and I'm watching these systems connect, I just observed, you guys are still running Windows 7. So I just shot a note to the controller there, the chief finance officer, and said, so what's the deal? We talked about this ad nauseum last year, and you had a plan to upgrade to Windows 10, and you asked us questions, and we asked you more questions, and then as often happens, the conversation fell flat and nothing was done. So now that you have all these laptops, which you're spinning up and sending home to these users, and they're completely unprotected, and you're opening up your home networks into your work network, what's the plan?
Mm-hmm.
And according to the IT guy on site, well, they're running antivirus, so it's okay. So I'm going to stop for a second, and I would just like to let you guys run with that. Bill, specifically, since you're our guest today, how do you respond to that?
Yeah. Anything and everything on a computer is layered security. So one thing by itself, no matter, even if you're completely up to date with everything, is never the catch-all. And it's kind of like the old days when everyone thought, well, I have a Mac, so I'm immune to all of this stuff. You're never immune. And Windows 7, I mean, you're not patched, so there's vulnerability there with the patching that's not going to be taken care of. Antivirus it's nothing. It's not going to help you. Makes no difference. And what are they running? McAfee?
Actually, no. One thing is we do supply them with Sophos endpoint, and while I'm fairly confident in Sophos, that's great. My analogy was Windows is Microsoft manufactures doors. Windows is your screen door. It is full of holes. Sophos is a fly swatter. While it's pretty effective, and you can sit there and swat all those mosquitoes as they come through, this is not a tenable long-term solution. All right. Also, I said, patching is like seatbelts. You don't not buckle your seatbelt because you have anti-lock brakes on your car.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It is layered security. And just to say, well, I have that one, so I don't care about this. And, like I say, it's like, well, we don't need a sprinkler system in this, giant commercial building because a couple of folks have fire extinguishers. It's not the same. And, I tried to make these analogies to the folks, and I try to be as gentle as possible. But I got to tell you, after I've told the same client the same thing like 5 times, I start to lose it a little bit. I'm just like, this guy, this guy specifically, he's a former auto mechanic turned computer guy. He's not qualified to make these decisions to tell you what's secure or not. So anyway, so that was my day, but that's why I brought that up. So just a reminder, if you are running Windows 7 and you absolutely cannot, I don't feel like, but if you absolutely cannot get rid of it, you really, really, really should purchase extended support to get security updates for it, because Microsoft is still publishing patches for these, which means there are still new security vulnerabilities coming out which are targeting your computers. And if you don't have these patches, you will still be exposed to these problems. So it doesn't cost much. It's cheap. It's like, I don't even remember, it's like $60 a year for a computer.
Yeah, it's not very much at all.
It's not much money to do it. It's the path of least resistance if you're going to keep Windows 7. But to not patch this is simply irresponsible. And you're just begging to be hacked. So I'm going to step down from my soapbox now.
Well, and I've had to, we did talk about this recently, is I've had to explain the risk of them using Windows 7, because in some cases we've got people remoting in with Windows 7 computers that are outside of our network. They're not necessarily our client's network, but this is the user's computer, and we of course we will not install VPNs on there. We will not put their computer on the network.
Mm-hmm.
But we have conceded that we will put TrueGrid on there, which is making a connection and an RDP connection, so that computer doesn't exactly touch the network with that method.
Yep.
I'd also feel a little less comfortable using like Log Me In or something, because you can pull that off, but you still have file access. And there could still be some transfers over the program of a smart hacker that's got a Log Me In exploit. I don't know. So yes, I mean, we have some out there, but we're telling them this is a risk, and we make them acknowledge that it is a risk. And they say, well, we don't have a choice right now. It's either that or no work. But they agree these can't exist. And
yep. I mean, giving them at least, making them think about it for a minute is useful. This thing is, and again, we've talked about this just like I think last week. Accepting a risk is not the same as ignoring a risk.
Yeah.
Right? If you put some thought into it, maybe even do a little, I don't know, math, and calculate like what will cost if we do this and what it's going to cost if everything goes to hell. Just think about that for a little bit, and then you accept the risk and you say, yep, we understand, we have no choice, we're going to have to do it this way. That's not the same as blah, 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 you guys take care of all of our computer stuff.
Yeah, you protect, that's why we pay you.
That's why we pay you. That's right.
Right.
Yeah, and I've made that analogy too. It's like you hire a bodyguard, but then you insist on walking down dark alleys with $100 bills hanging out of your pockets, listening to your giant Beats headphones at full, blast. And then you're like, why didn't you protect me from those guys who jumped me? Like, well, we tried. We tried to tell you not to go down the alley in the first place.
Right.
Anyway, there you go. Okay, back off soapbox again.
All right, cool.
There's a lot of jumping.
Well, I'm channeling Adam in his CrossFit CrossFit routines there.
So I guess we'll have to mention some things about COVID-19, at least like from the standpoint of things that we're doing.
Yeah, like I said, COVID-19 podcast. Every podcast is now a COVID-19 podcast.
I know. That's what I said to Bill. He said, well, what are we going to talk about today? I said, well, we might not talk exactly about COVID-19, but everything that we're doing because of COVID-19.
It's related, yeah.
It is.
We're all at home. Oh, we're all working from remote. Oh, nobody has any toilet paper.
That's not true.
Don't shake with your left hand.
That's
the E. coli hand.
I did go to Wegmans yesterday, our local store, and it was yesterday or the day before, I think. And the shelves, I would not say they were full, but they did have toilet paper again. So there was stock on that. I did not see, because I've got plenty at home, like hand sanitizers or Lysol or disinfectant wipes. I didn't check those.
Yes, that's like almost impossible to find.
Yeah. But, I have like a couple of gallons of bleach. I've got a couple of liters of hand sanitizer back from when I was practicing jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga every day. I would take some and I would get little travel bottles and I would fill my own little travel bottles. So in my gym bag, I'd always have some.
There you go.
After rolling around with a bunch of big, smelly, sweaty guys, I would go downstairs in the bathroom because they didn't have locker rooms. And I would just lather up my hands full of the hand sanitizer and then just give myself a quick rub down. And, that worked. So
they always thought you were drinking. Yeah.
Man, you smell good.
He smells like vodka all the time.
But,
cheap alcohol.
So let me tell you a toilet paper story. It's not well. So I went to my property out in Perry County, which is 90 minutes from here, and I stopped at the Dollar General. Long story short, I got toilet paper, and it says on it equivalent to 32 rolls of paper, and I'm like, well, how many rolls are in it? And I open it up, 32. And there are 8.
That's a big equivalence.
So I'm like, how does each roll of toilet paper equal 4 times the volume when these look like regular toilet paper rolls to me? I was like, that's funny. Anyway. But I thought it
punchline. I mean, yeah, how is it?
It wipes just fine. But I don't feel like I just got four times the ply.
But it's equivalent.
But yeah. Because I didn't even count them. I was like, 32 rolls, that's a lot of toilet paper in that little small package. And then I got home, it was like 8. Huh.
Yeah, it's new math. Alternative fact math.
Yeah. We'll sell you 32 rolls of paper.
Maybe you've already been buying the equivalent sized in other brands, and you didn't know it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. When I hear claims like that, it just makes me, when I say like, yeah, we'll give you 32 terabytes of cloud storage. Yeah, it's really 8, but that's the equivalent to 32, right?
That's equivalent.
It's compressed.
You remember the days of RAM doubler and disk doubler, right?
Yeah.
It's compressed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah. My bill is only going to be $8,000.
Cloud doubler. I will double your cloud. There we go. Oh, brother. So what's going on in Kentucky?
So, actually, I mean, I don't know where he got his whatever he released. It was actually, so the Department of Justice of Kentucky released the scams that are now associated with checks from COVID-19.
So the government is sending you your $1,000 check, $1,200 check?
$1,200.
$1,200.
And there's all kinds of people calling to help you make sure that you get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I thought about it. I really need to share this information with everybody in my list because it is good. Because yeah, I mean, so they do have some good points there. That the IRS is never going to call you. They're not going to send you things in the mail. So it says the IRS will deposit your check in direct deposit, which you have already provided them when you've done your tax returns.
Yeah. Or they will send you a check. Yes.
Well, and they said they will not call to ask you to verify your payments. Did you receive that $11 I sent you? Why, yes.
No. No, can you send it again?
But yeah, and here's the other one, or they say, if you receive a call, don't engage with the scammers or thieves. Just tell them it's a scam and hang up.
This is a scam. Hang up.
Hang up. You're out of there. Text, emails. The IRS is not going to text you. They are not going to email you. And I like this one. I love the old bogus checks in the mail, for an odd, yeah.
Yeah, did you hear also there have been a number of scams related to things like people have been sending teddy bears with USB thumb drives in the mail.
Yes.
Like postal mail. So Robin Robbins is not the only one who believes in mailing people stuff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Scammers are still sending that too. And he's like, oh, it came with a teddy bear. Of course I can trust this USB drive and plug it in and infect my system with whatever was on it. So,
well, and don't forget, I mean, if you want to really scare people a little bit more, you can actually put malware on a USB power cord.
Oh yeah.
So you get an anonymous power cord. Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Throw it away. No.
Yeah, but they make little power condoms though, so that you can get something which is just it's a lightning in, lightning out, or USB in, USB out. It's just a male to female cable, but it has all the data pins neutered, so it's just connecting the power pins.
Right.
Yeah, I've got one right here that I got from my last Robin Robbins event, I think.
Yeah.
And
you can trust whoever gave it to you?
Well, I don't know that I can. That's exactly it. I don't know that I can trust them. I don't know these people.
Good. You're learning, young Padawan.
That's why it's still in the package, because I have I need to plug it up to something and see if it does anything, but I don't really want to take the time to find a sandbox. And
there you go. What do you have that's disposable? You got to plug it in on a disposable machine on your disposable red zone network, and then you'll be all set.
Yeah, and nothing happens, and
nothing happens.
Even if nothing happens, I would still restore that system from the backup before I plugged it in. Even if nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Yeah. Nothing happens is a sign of a good
Look over
hacker.
here.
Yeah.
All right. What else we got?
All right. So Zoom is, the number 2 topic of all things of COVID-19 is Zoom.
Stock price is at $123.32 last I checked.
Man, I wish I had bought it at $1 or whenever it opened.
Yeah. I almost bought some yesterday, but it's around the same price. So, so Zoom video communications. By the way, that is not ZOOM ticker symbol. It's ZM. Apparently, NASDAQ stopped trading on ZOOM because a lot of people were buying it thinking it was Zoom.
What is actually Zoom?
What is actually Zoom? Zoom is actually video conferencing software.
No, I meant the
Zoom, the other one.
The other one.
I don't even remember. Hold
on.
Oh,
okay.
I didn't go there, but I was doing searches for it, and I saw Zoom, and I said, I don't think that's the one, because there's too many. And sure enough, it was the obscure ZM.
Yeah. Okay.
But I did just hear related to that, as I'm looking at, to look up what ticker symbol Zoom refers to, I see that Corona beer stops production.
Corona, they stopped production?
An hour ago from CNN.
Because
production of Corona is being temporarily suspended in Mexico because of the coronavirus pandemic. The company that makes the beer, Grupo Modelo, posted an announcement on Twitter stating it's halting production and marketing because the Mexican government has shuttered non-essential businesses. So I didn't realize that that's Anheuser-Busch. I should have known that. So
that's Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah, Modelo and Pacifico.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
I mean, because they make Negro. They make some of my favorite beers. I don't like Corona. I mean,
I never did like Corona beer.
Well, but they didn't. They said, Corona's coincidental name with the virus hasn't dented sales, they say. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. So it's not because of coronavirus that they're, it is, but it's not because of the name. So,
yeah.
Okay, fine. So, anyway, back to what is Zoom? I don't know what Zoom is, but the other Zoom. Zoom, NASDAQ ticker symbol ZM, Zoom, Zoom.us if you're using it. It's video conferencing software. And there's been some issues with them. They've made some claims about the security of their platform. Some of it is just due to popularity. And they've also done some rather shady things that sadly everyone is doing. So really quick, one thing is they had claimed that the communications in a Zoom conference call, by the way, this one, we're using Zoom, is end-to-end encrypted, meaning that nobody could snoop on the communications and that you could use it for a genuinely secure call. That turns out not to be the case. There are sections of the the conversation, which can be intercepted by a third party, or by Zoom itself, which means that, say, if the government shows up with a warrant and says, we want a call of Adam and Peter and Bill, and we want a copy of this publicly available podcast, they could get a copy of it. The other thing is that Zoom, like so many startups these days, was sharing all kinds of data with Facebook, even if you didn't have the Facebook app installed on your phones. So now I deleted my Facebook account a couple of years ago now, and I deleted the apps all over it. More on that later. But essentially, even if you have a Facebook account, in theory, you could give yourself a little bit of buffer from the eye of Sauron that is known as Facebook, which is following you everywhere, by not having the app, because then the app can't get any of the analytics data from your phone. Unless, of course, the app, a different app, in this case Zoom, is collecting that data and then handing it over to Facebook.
Thank you.
Which is exactly what they were doing. Yeah, so Zoom, that's one where, like, if I, met their president and stuff like that, it's like full on smack upside the head. It's just scummy, but I'm sure that it's in their terms of service, which said, yeah, sure, give us all. We may sell your data to third parties, and Facebook is the biggest third party out there. They claim to have stopped this practice since then, probably because they've got enough money now, since their stock market is, stock price is going through the roof. They don't have to sell all your data to Facebook. But on top of that, the Boston FBI a few days ago, earlier this week, released a notification about this trend known as Zoom bombing, where people, since a Zoom call is really just 9 digits, people would just start punching in, probably automated, but you could do this by hand, zoom.us / join.zoom.us / whatever, insert 9 digits here. And odds are, eventually, you're going to find yourself in a call. And then, especially now, because Zoom is taking over the conferencing world, because it's a little bit cheaper and it's easier to use than things like WebEx and some of the other commercial contenders. So one of the biggest things that they said is, get this, put a password on your Zoom meetings. What an idea! But that's hard, right? You can't just put a public message out there. So I think we put a link. If not, I'll put a link in the show notes to that. But Ars Technica also had an article this week about, like, tips that you should know. I think it was like 5 tips or essential security tips that you should have. And I've been working to let some of my clients know, some of these things, because everybody's just like in a race to get home. Grab a laptop. Oh, you've got a home computer? Use that. My neighbor next door, she's using an old Macintosh, and she's using that to connect into to do work. And she's a therapist, and the data going back and forth, I'm pretty sure, should be covered under the HIPAA High Tech Act. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that her home personal laptop has been vetted in any sort of way by her employer to make that fly. So I was just like, these are not the precedents that you want being set, Yeah. So anyway, that's, yes, shameless plug. Buy yourself, buy computers for your staff if you expect them to work from home.
Try to do that now, though.
Yeah,
you can't find a computer.
Good luck. Exactly. Yeah. I got some leftover spare laptops and desktops right here. I'll sell you cheap. Some of them are in pretty good shape too. But anyway, so we'll put links in the show notes to some of these things, tips on how to work securely. A lot of this is really just basic security best practices, like, don't fall for phishing scams. Don't believe stuff that you get. Keep your systems patched and updated. Where have we heard that before? Use a VPN to get into the corporate network. Don't just open up remote desktop at the firewall and let it flood in. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these things that, I sort of take for granted are, just like basic practices that you can use to protect any network, not just people working from home.
Yeah. But, and you have to do it all the time, every time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because, so like, perfect example of that, this morning, I got an email from one of my clients who's the controller, and he sent me an email saying the CEO needed his email password. And I said,
No.
what's his cell phone number? And I already knew his cell phone number. And he sent me a cell phone number. I'm like, okay, so this is really the controller. I said, but I'm still going to call, because I wanted to make sure that he had the CEO's correct cell phone number. And I called the CEO, and it turns out it was all legit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's those kind of things you have to do every time, not just sometimes.
Right. Now, wait, so the CEO was asking for whose password? His own password or the CFO's?
His own password. He didn't know his own password.
Okay. So he was asked, and was he asking for his password, or was he asking for his password to be reset?
Yeah, he wanted his password, which I couldn't provide him. And
okay.
I said, well, I have to reset it. But
just checking. I because we see that a lot. Like, oh yeah, you have my password, don't you? I'm like, no.
Yeah. Sometimes we do. I mean, we document, like when we create a new user,
mm-hmm.
we document that so that
mm-hmm.
we have it for initial settings. But
mm-hmm.
after 90 days or whatever, it's gone. I mean, it's useless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We tried to get out of the business of storing people's passwords a long time ago, and use a password manager. We are not your password manager.
Oh yeah, it's for our convenience. It's not for theirs. Like,
right. I don't even think I know any of my passwords anymore.
Yeah,
because they're generated by Password Boss.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know passwords, and I don't know phone numbers anymore.
Yeah,
I know some phone numbers. So.
Yeah, phone numbers. I started to forget a long time before I started to forget passwords. So.
Yeah.
Oh well. Moving on though.
Oh,
so,
have you guys seen the Office 365 phishing too that's been coming out? Because Microsoft changed all the names.
Yes.
Okay, in the middle of, I mean, what a great plan that was to keep that going. And now we've got clients that are like, is this legit? And the phishing attempts because of the name change, people trying to
what name change?
They changed the Office 365 lineup names.
Yeah, Office 365 and Microsoft 365 and Business Essentials and Premiums. They reject all those names.
Yeah.
It's like Office Premium is now Microsoft 365.
Right.
Premium.
Yeah.
And Basic is now Essentials, and Essentials is Business, and like what the?
Yep.
The other thing with Microsoft is they're stamping Azure on everything now.
Yeah.
Azure used to mean our cloud, like AWS. That was our cloud hosting service. It doesn't mean that anymore. Well, sometimes it does.
Mm-hmm.
But it can mean all kinds of other stuff that has nothing to do with the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
But they got something that's working. Let's, get the most out of it.
Well, Azure. Everyone likes Azure, so let's use that everywhere. I'm like,
I mean, they're jamming it all together now. The user manager for Office 365 is now in the Azure portal. I mean, they've jammed it over there. It's no longer its own thing.
Yep. I've seen that, but that really is in the Azure portal. There's like on-prem stuff called Azure.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Would you like an Azure mouse?
Sure. Give me two.
And I've got an Azure compatible keyboard too.
I was going to say, can I have my Azure mouse in the cloud, please?
What does that even mean?
They're jealous of Alexa. They're trying.
So speaking of tracking things in the cloud, so you mentioned one thing I said was like about deleting Facebook and stuff.
Uh-huh.
I hate to say it, but I think it's starting to look like all of my efforts to block Facebook out of my life have been in vain. Because just the mere fact of, things like Zoom, but also cell phone location services. There are companies that are hoovering up all this data and turning around and selling it to things like the government, the Googles, and the Facebooks.
Yeah.
And so we have this article, I linked to it, and the title is Video Shows Cell Phones on Florida Beach During Spring Break and Where They Have Traveled During the Coronavirus Outbreak.
Awesome.
New heat map using cell phone location data shows terrifying consequences of Florida's beaches remaining open during the coronavirus pandemic. As you can see in the video, cell phones on a single beach in Fort Lauderdale during spring break were selected, tracked, and then seen sprawling all over the eastern half of the country, potentially spreading the virus even further. Wow. The video was created to show human movement during the coronavirus pandemic and uses data collected by a location technology company called Xmode, which then put them into Tectonic's data visualization platform. Moving on, blah, blah, blah. Point 3, your cell phone gives off a ton of data. And while this type of data isn't specifically linked to your identity, it's incredibly easy for anyone to re-identify people to their phones. And they also go on, like, this information now, it's out there. And I remember I was telling, a friend of mine a few years ago, like, he was turning off all the things. He has a brand new, at the time, iPhone 7, and he had turned off all the things that made it an iPhone 7. And I was like, why are you doing it? Why do I like tracking? I'm like, they can still track you via cellular. Well, I don't like making it any easier for them. Like, you make it sound like there's a bunch of people in the back room sitting there slaving over these calculations, dude. It's automated. It's just being done. And I'm afraid I've come to that same point where, like, the only thing is, like, by me not having the Facebook app and not logging into Facebook, I know I'm not losing any time to Facebook. So I'm not falling into the time suck.
But what are you losing time to?
Meditating.
Oh, okay.
Exercising. Anything but Facebook. And I have to say, anything but Facebook is probably more productive than Facebook. so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So the Peter Nikolaidis on my Facebook's not you, huh?
There may still be. There were two. I had 2 accounts. I deleted one and I just abandoned the other.
Okay.
The one that I abandoned was the one that I used only for controlling my Paradigm Consulting Facebook page. So that probably is still me. Otherwise, it may be a cop in Toronto. It could be a number of others. I really don't know. So, but if it's got me, the one from my like leaning in photo from my book, quote unquote, then yeah, that was me, sort of, but not really. So,
sort of, but not really.
Sort of, but not really. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Again, so like, there's being tracked, etc. We all know. I've talked about how I don't like that. But the whole part about, like, former Facebook executives coming back or coming out years later saying, yes, we deliberately experimented with manipulating your emotions and would deliberately put stuff into the, to make you feel bad so that you'd want to come back to Facebook looking for more dopamine and stuff like that. It's just inexcusable. And, so I refuse to deliberately be part of that. It's just sick. So that's why, I don't see myself going back to Facebook anytime soon. Maybe after Mark Zuckerberg is, dragged out into the street and drawn and quartered, sure. But until that point, I'm staying clean. Not that I have a strong opinion on things.
Never.
Well, I kind of look at my phone as like my electric alibi, because I try to do things. I mean, I try to live my life in the up and up. And if they say, well, you were in Florida killing somebody, I'm like, nope, I wasn't. You can track my phone.
Until, of course, that data gets compromised and faked.
Then there's that. But,
but until then, you're doing great.
Or at least you feel you are.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. And that's really, isn't that more important? How do you feel? I feel great about what I
feel. Yeah, I feel fine. Well, and our girls have always been tracked on their phones since they got their phones. I mean, we said, we track you on your phones. We can see where you are. And they've always known. So it's never been really a problem and a privacy thing for them, because they know. And of course, I know that my girls and my wife know exactly where I am all the time. And, you know, from an accountability standpoint, that shouldn't bother me.
Where are you? Are you down at the pub again?
Yeah.
We did that with our kids, and it came in handy, you know, when Drew drove across the country and decided to take a shortcut and ended up in the most remote area of the continental United States with no cell service.
Death Valley or Alaska?
Oh, that was years ago.
Oh, cool. So let's see.
What else we got?
Well, Bill, you want to talk about anything?
I don't know what I would want to talk about. I mean, the coronavirus thing's got everybody kind of in a tizzy. Everyone's scared to death. Uncertainty. And I guess really what I'd kind of like to throw out there a little bit is to realize that business hasn't really changed that much. There are some industries that are really being hurt hard, but they're finding new ways to do what they were doing. And I think, as we come out of this, I think there's going to be some fundamental changes of how the world works. But I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of opportunity for that at the same time. So it's really the big message is don't let fear get you to a point where you're afraid to do anything. Act, do something. Don't just sit back and say you're too scared to death to do anything. So,
well, and I think, I mean, the whatever the cliche word is to pivot. Right now, it's time to pivot. If you're the owner of Logan's or that chain, I saw where they had to lay off thousands of people because those restaurants can't operate, and they can't make the same volume doing to go. So they're going to have to make an adjustment on how they do business, because we don't know how long this will last. I mean, it has to have an end, but we don't know how long it will last. But the thing is, it's like, well, in that particular example, how long would it take them to retool to be able to serve food in a different manner? And then, 2 months from now, they have to go back to normal. Is that work worth it to them?
And every industry, every company is going to have to decide that and figure out what it is.
And they're going to have to do like what you said. They may be it may change the industry and, change the way that they do business going forward, good or bad. Hopefully good.
Yep.
Hopefully they'll learn something.
But it's kind of what I was saying. I mean, but they've made a decision. They've assessed everything. They figured out what they've had to do so that they survive, so that they can, be back when this is all over. I've seen a lot of companies or a lot of people where they're afraid to close. They're afraid to lay off. They're afraid to send I mean, they're like traumatized. And now's the time for the leaders to kind of lead through that and make the decision. And sometimes it's not going to be easy, and sometimes it's going to be pretty painful, but make it and move forward.
And this isn't the first time that we've seen, changes. I would say it's probably one of the biggest, shifts that we've seen, a long time. But there's a lot of businesses that have shifted from physical to virtual, right? I wouldn't say that they happened as quickly as this one, right? But it's pretty rapid change for sure. But I'm also interested, though, in one thing I was talking with a colleague this morning about how it reminds me back in the day when you got your internet connection at home and you would just plug it in and boom, your computer is on the internet, publishing all its services and no firewall.
Mm-hmm.
And then these worms and viruses started spreading throughout the internet. So what would we do? Oh, there's something running on port 3389. Well, let's just close down port 3389 until this all blows over, and then we'll open it back up again. Yeah. Eventually, that became, how's about we just close down everything except what we actually need to have open? Right. And I can't help but think that, you know, what we used to do, walking around in the produce store, just picking up whatever you want, taking it out in the car, eating it right there. It feels like we're doing somewhat the same. And I'm just wondering if that's going to stick. You know, is fresh produce going to be a thing of the past, or is the way it's presented today going to be a thing of the past? You know, will everything be packaged differently? Will we handle stuff more carefully always moving forward? You know, and like I got 4 cardboard boxes sitting inside because I got to ship some, you know, machines off trading into Apple. You know, I let those boxes sit for a good long time before I brought them into the house. So, and then once they were in the house, they got sprayed down with Lysol. Is this going to be the new normal? You know, I mean,
it probably will be for a while.
Yep. So on that note, I think we should wrap this up. Adam, you want to do the honors? Tell folks how they can get in touch with us, and maybe Bill?
Sure thing. Okay. So we do want your feedback. We would like, if you'd like to discuss a particular topic or you have questions or concerns about what we have talked about, then you can drop us a line at www.blurringthelinespodcast.com. You can also you can't find Peter on Facebook, but you can find me on Facebook. And you can find, but you can find Peter at one of his websites at paradigmcc.com or yogawithpeter.com, or you can find me at www.sublimecomp.com. And Bill, give us your URL.
It is www.wcitech.net.
Okay.
Wiki TechNet.
Yeah, the old one was much longer. This one's easier. So.
Yeah. The right solution, we fix your computers and we like you, .com.
Something like that, yeah.
Especially if you're in Columbus, Ohio area.
Yeah.
/ $&, PayPal.com.
Yeah. All right. Well, Peter, on that note,
I will push the big red button.
All right.